Throughout the Brexit debate, the issue of trade keeps coming up. After all, that's what the EU is supposed to be all about. Trade Secretary Liam Fox famously said that a free trade deal with the EU would be the easiest in human history. But is trade really that simple? Trading has been around since prehistory. People with a surplus of something swapped for something they needed, and those with special skills, like making pots or tools, found they could get more food trading their skills than by hunting or farming. Truly free trade would mean that anyone could trade anything wherever they liked, with no restrictions. But in reality, this rarely happens, for some very good reasons. Countries quickly discovered that unrestricted free trade brings some significant risks, such as rapid social change and upheaval. For example, during the Industrial Revolution in Britain, the textile factories of the north of England were able to produce large quantities of good quality cloth at a relatively cheap price. Merchants were able to trade this cloth all over the British Empire, and it was much in demand, and many fortunes were made. But one of the consequences was that people whose livelihoods depended upon making cloth in traditional ways soon found themselves out of work and in poverty. As another example, in developed countries we rightly expect workers in dangerous jobs to have the best protective clothing and gear that can be provided. Often this is expensive, as is the safety training that goes with it. Because of this, governments often have to pass laws to make sure that safety is given a high priority. In some countries, these laws don't exist, and the safety of workers is not given the same priority. Companies that operate there can produce more cheaply and therefore have a competitive advantage. The North American Free Trade Agreement, for example, has been blamed for the loss of thousands of manufacturing jobs in the United States, as car companies and others have built plants in Mexico. This has led to much anger in the cities of the United States where unemployment is high. In the long run, provided workers can be retrained and industry refocused, economists are agreed that this sort of disruption can be a good thing, as it allows countries to specialise in what they're good at and produce better quality goods at a lower price. The UK, for example, has become a centre of excellence for the manufacture of aircraft wings, and the northwest of England has the largest cluster of biological medicine manufacturing anywhere in Europe. It also means that a British car, like the Land Rover, can include many parts made in other European countries, making assembly in Solihull more efficient and cheaper. Trade is a way of helping to balance out the difference between rich countries and poor countries. Many European and American companies moved production of their products to China to take advantage of lower wages there. This has helped to boost growth in China and made most Chinese people considerably better off. But it has also led to China exporting far more to the West than it imports, what Donald Trump calls a very bad deal. Another area of concern in trade is the environment. Developed countries often have strict laws to protect the environment and prevent companies creating pollution or damaging important natural resources. Some developing countries do not have such strict laws, and so companies can avoid the costs of cleaning up or preventing pollution. In some countries, precious rainforest is being burnt to make space to grow profitable crops. There is also concern that where regulations and enforcement are less good, companies can take risks and shortcuts to save money that puts people's lives at risk. An accident blamed on poor safety standards at a factory belonging to a US chemical company in India in 1984 caused the deaths of thousands of people in the local town. The other big worry for governments is security. If there was completely free trade in food products, the price we pay would drop because other countries can produce foods more cheaply. The problem is that because of this, some of our farmers would go out of business, and in a time of world famine or war, the country would be vulnerable, as it would have lost the ability to feed itself. Similarly, governments will, if they can, want to make their own defence equipment and make sure that they have access to fuel and energy supplies. There are lots of reasons, therefore, for countries to want to have some controls on trade to protect themselves. There are three main barriers to trade used around the world. The most well-known and most talked about are tariffs. These are a sort of tax on imports, which have the effect of putting up the price of imported products to protect home-based industries. The second method is to impose a quota or limit on the amount of any product that can be imported. In the case of New Zealand lamb, for example, the EU currently has a limit of 228,000 tonnes per year that can be imported. The last barrier, and by far the most difficult to understand and overcome, are rules and regulations relating to particular commodities. These range from strict rules that prevent invasive plants and animal species getting into a country, to the technical standards that ensure products made in different countries will work on one system, such as a mobile telephone network. Sometimes an embargo is placed on exporting to certain countries for political reasons, such as North Korea. But if rules around the trade of goods can be tricky, that is as nothing compared to the trade in the services provided by people. Services cover a vast range of expertise that can be sold abroad, from the creative industries like music and filmmaking to financial services and technical design and consulting. Services are a big and growing part of the UK's exports, and the rules that cover how they can be sold across international borders are highly complex. For truly free or frictionless trade, a British company should be able to make a central heating boiler and export it to Italy without paying any tariffs or having to fill in any customs documents. When it arrives there, it can be connected to an Italian central heating system because all the technical specifications and safety requirements are the same. It should also be possible for a British engineer to install or service the boiler without needing a work permit or local qualifications. This is what happens in the current single market of the EU, the only international single market in the world. The process of bringing together the regulations and specifications for modern industry and trade in construction, agriculture, engineering, chemicals, medicine, banking and every other field has been immensely complex. British representatives have been at the heart of making this work, but it has taken about 40 years to achieve. Free trade deals do exist between countries, like for example the North American Free Trade Association, or NAFTA. Mostly these cover tariffs and quotas, with some agreement about basic rules. Even so, they take many years to negotiate. The deal between Canada and the EU, for example, took 7 years to complete. When negotiating, countries are always looking to make sure their own interests are properly looked after. For example, the USA has already made clear that in a potential free trade deal with the UK after Brexit, they'll be looking for the UK to change its food standards to accept products like chlorine-washed chicken and hormone-treated beef, products that American farmers would like to sell more of. Donald Trump has also made clear that he believes the NHS should pay more for the medicines that it buys. The Indian government has said that its price for a free trade deal with the UK will be easier immigration for people from that country. There's also been much talk about the World Trade Organization, or WTO, rules. This means that a country must treat other countries that are also members of the WTO equally, unless they have a negotiated trade deal in place. Trading on WTO terms with the EU would mean that the UK exports to Europe would be treated in the same way as those from the USA. It is not free trade. So in summary, free trade deals take years to agree. They're usually only about tariffs and quotas, and they usually still require customs checks and documentation. Frictionless trade deals are fiendishly complex. They take decades to set up, and they do require countries to give up setting their own product standards and rules, which can be seen as a loss of sovereignty. The problem for the UK is that economists have calculated that generally, if the distance between trading countries doubles, the amount of trade halves. Because of this, it's our closest neighbours in Europe that we need a trade deal with most urgently. After that, it's the USA, which already accounts for 20% of our exports. but setting up these deals is going to take some tough negotiations.